that wood. That pretty wood.
That was a good hole.
All the same pine-ish, kind of the same, almost, maybe the same. I don't know. I'm not a wood guy. I normally like to build things out of metal, out of steel, but it's gonna have a wood top. It's like we might as well build it out of wood. It's just so much easier to get wood than like mass amounts of steel. Steel, you've got to go. Oh, by the way, we haven't started this out yet. We are doing some more shop upgrades to the shop here. We're gonna be doing a lot of stuff, a lot of built-in stuff. We've got some big plans, some stuff we've been meaning to do for a while that should really improve the shop, both work area, storage area, all of those things. So we got a bunch of wood here, and we're gonna build some stuff. Alright guys, before we get too deep into today's video, I wanted to talk to you about today's video sponsor, AG1. Now, AG1 is a nutritional drink that contains 75 different high-quality ingredients, including vitamins, minerals, probiotics, adaptogens, all kind of carefully curated to nourish your entire body holistically, all in one simple, effective, easy to keep up with package. And that has got to be my favorite thing about AG1. I've tried taking multiple different supplements. You know, at one point when I was younger, I thought vitamins were just something your parents made you take. And when you got older, you didn't need to do that anymore, but you do. It's very, very important. But with all these different supplements and vitamins and minerals and all these things, it's just so hard to keep track of. Then on trips, I mean, forget it. I'm not gonna remember to bring everything. I'm definitely not gonna remember to use it, you know, before we go to the track. Whereas AG1, it's so simple. One scoop, 8 to 12 ounces of cold water. I drink it first thing in the morning. I go about my day. Easy peasy. I mean, literally, it doesn't get any easier. And I mean, it's improved my mental clarity, my focus, my energy throughout the day. That is huge. You know, I can work out here till 9, keep cruising the whole time, not get burned out, but without having to rely on caffeine and getting the caffeine jitters and the crash. So I love it. It's been amazing. I think they did just such a great job with it overall. The curation of all the different things all into one package, the flavor, the taste. So that being said, if you guys are interested in trying it out for yourself, head to drinkag1.com/TaylorRay with 2 R's to get started on your first order. AG1 is going to give you guys a free 1-year supply of AG Vitamin D3 plus K2, as well as 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. It's a great way to try it out and just see what you think, see if it improves your kind of day-to-day quality of life and overall wellness feeling as much as it did for me. Because for me, there's no turning back. So that being said, huge thank you to AG1 for sponsoring this video. It's time to get back to it. We got a lot of work to do, so. I had to buy some tools. When I said I'm not much of a wood guy, I meant I'm not much of a wood guy. All I have is a crappy little handheld circular saw. But doing this alone, plus that we do any more wood projects, so I was like, I might as well have it. The only thing that sucks is like, not only do you have to buy it, but you gotta store it. The cool thing about one of these is, we can also cut aluminum with this, with the carbide tip blade. I've got a finer tooth count blade, which is what we'd really want for cutting aluminum, but we can cut aluminum with this, which is nice.
That's a positive.
Yeah, that was part of my justification. I really want to make this look nice. I have that workbench over there that came with the house, basically. And it's, you know, it's good, it's solidly built. It's like built out of all scrap material. I put a better top on it, MDF top. But I've always wished it was nicer, you know? And I'm always like, whenever I build a workbench, I'm gonna build it way nicer. This one isn't replacing that one. This is going to be an add-on workbench. It's going to get a little crammed in here, but we're trying to be efficient and utilize all of the shop space. No wasted space. Burner! What's up, dude? So the first project we are starting with is building a big old workbench. This is something I've wanted to do for a while. I've needed another workbench. You can never have enough worktops in your shop. It is the best way to stay and keep organized. So we're trying to build the perimeter of this real nice and clean so it looks sleek. So we're going to be doing these 45s. It's a little tricky to get everything set up, but after a little bit of tinkering, I think we got it. Perfect. 1/16 of an inch shy. So after getting the first couple cuts out of the way, we have kind of the plan of how to approach this with minimal saw changes, having to flip it left to right because then I've got to move the hold down and everything. So trying to be efficient, come up with a game plan to get all our cuts and make sure they're accurate and consistent. We're trying to cut alongside, so basically it's easier to confirm the measurement because we know how long the long side needs to be. We don't know exactly how long the short side needs to be. So these are all things you kind of got to take into account. But once we had the process, it was just cutting all of our individual pieces to build the table. We have a rough plan, you know, it's not super sketched out, it's not all drawn up, just basically the outside dimensions. We know we want the corners to meet at 45, and that's where we're starting. So these are, again, going to be our perimeter, basically the main framework. So while I'm working on that, Josue was going to go ahead and start working on the top. So I've had this piece of MDF top for a couple of years now. I bought it a long time ago to build a bench, and then it got pushed by the wayside, and it got tossed in the container and then pulled back out of the container. It's been sitting by the far lift for a while now, and finally we're going to get it out of the way, out of being crammed in the corner, and put it to good use. So he started working on cleaning that so we can get ready to coat it, and I just kept trucking along with cutting our pieces. So for this table, we're going to do an epoxy top coat. And to do that, we need to really basically pour it on here. It's going to be a thick, you know, 1/8 inch or so thick coat. It's not like we're painting it on and we just need to protect the ground from getting dripped on. We basically are needing to build a border around this to contain all the liquid while it cures and dries into a hardened epoxy. So we use this poster board to tape around the edges, give us basically a little swimming pool. And ideally that'll keep all the epoxy on the table while we even it out and let it cure. So he was finishing up that, and I started working on cutting our main post to hold all the framework together. So I wanted to get just the main pieces cut so that we could start building this and then start worrying about the bracing and the other secondary things after this. But first things first, we need a framework. All right, we got all of our pieces cut for our basic framework. So this is basically our perimeter of the box. We'll have bracing inside of that we still need to cut, and then our posts here. I didn't want to use pressure treated posts just because it's kind of a different finish. They're all sappy from the sap getting pushed out, but they were really all we could get at the hardware store that fit the bill. So yeah, that's pretty much ready to go. We're going to start assembling it, and then we'll cut the bracing in so we know the exact size to keep everything nice, tight, and square. But before we start building out the framework, we need to work on our top because it's going to take a little bit of time. So here we have our 4x8 sheet of MDF. I've been saving this for a while specifically to build this table. So when I did this one, when I put this MDF top on, I used Tight Bond wood glue because it dries clear as kind of like a easy way to do epoxy, and it's held up well and it looks decent. But this time I wanted to use real epoxy, like real clear epoxy, and that's what we're going to use to finish this. But instead of finishing just over the bare MDF, we're going to put some memorabilia in there. I've had this collection of stickers and windshield banners and stuff. So this is from the second season of Clutch Kickers. This is from the first Riverside we did. We've got an OSW one. We've got a bunch of stickers from different companies we've worked with, parts we bought, all that good stuff. So this is going to basically be a collage, and then when we clear epoxy over it, it'll be sealed in the table. So it should come out pretty cool. I'm actually really excited about this. So the epoxy takes a long time to cure, so we want to get this knocked out now before we start building out the framework. So I'm going to quit jibber jabbering. We're going to get to it.
And by all means, you can move them around. I'm just going to start setting them down.
So Josue started laying out the stickers I had already set aside that I wanted to go on the table, and I started digging through more of my sticker totes. I have been saving stickers for so long. I get them, you know, in packages when I buy stuff, get sponsored stuff, friend stickers, all these stickers. And I like stickers. I like to keep them and save them. I don't throw them away. but I normally regret stickering things up. I've done it a few times in my life, and I'm always like, man, I kind of wish I wouldn't have done that. It just kind of, it's too much. It's too chaotic. I like neat, clean, simple, and organized. But this time I was like, you know what, this will be kind of a cool time capsule to save different stickers and banners and things from different eras in time. You know, it's, again, while we're doing the epoxy, we might as well do something cool under it. So we started out with the banners. Those are really the most important things for me. Those are the hardest things to get. These I just happen to have extras of from different events. Normally you only get one, it goes on the car, and then when you go to the next event, you got to take it off or lay one over it. So it's not common that I have these. So we wanted to make sure those went on nicely. And then we started working on some of the other big stickers and working our way around. So we had a rough layout of how we wanted to do this. It's, you know, collage style. We didn't have enough of stickers that we wanted to put on that to do it in a super organized manner. And, you know, I always debate this. I like the kind of randomized look and style, but I also like organized and simple. So we decided to go random on this and just kind of throw them around and try to make it look like a collage. But it's tricky. Sometimes it's harder to make something look random than it would be to make it look even and consistent. But we're plugging away on it. We're getting these stickers laid down. You know, some of these are really, really old, and especially the old ones with some strong transfer tape. You really got to be patient and tedious to get all the little edges and lines off because they just want to go off with the transfer tape. So we're cruising right along, getting all these stickers laid out. It's definitely a satisfying project to finally put a lot of these to use and promote different companies that have helped us in the past, friends, channels, you know, all of these things, all of these stickers that I've been saving for one day. I knew one day I would use them. I try not to be a pack rat or keep things like that I'm not probably never going to use, but these are something that I knew eventually I would use, and eventually has come. We finally have a good use to put all these stickers to, and I'm excited to see the results. All right, our base is all the way down. I've been collecting stickers for years, and it was a good use of all of these stickers I've been saving up, but I'm pretty happy with it. Having the banners especially, that's really cool. You know, clutch kickers, Riverside, OSW. We had one more banner, it would have been perfect, but we didn't. Those are the ones we had. So anyway, it's time. We got this epoxy on Amazon, had good reviews. Strong crystal clear finish, 2 gallons. So the only problem is I couldn't get big mixing cups in time. So we got these tiny little mixing cups. So maybe do like 6. So we'll set these to the side for now. Boom. All right, let's get to mixing. So the small mixing cup situation was definitely going to make this challenging, but we're always down and able to find workarounds. So we started by using the mixing cups. In hindsight, we know we're going to use all of this, so we could have poured half and half into this bucket that we got, but for starters, just to make sure we got the mix exactly right, we don't want to have any issues by having a little more of one or the other, we went ahead and used the mixing cups and started pouring them out one by one on the table. Now, our ideal scenario would be to have everything mixed, pour it all on at once, and spread it out, but we're making do with what we've got, so we get our first 6 mixing cups poured out onto the table and start spreading it out, start trying to even out the coat. We ideally should have about an 1/8 inch thick coat all the way around. So while Josue continued to spread the first initial 6-cup coat on, I started working on making a new batch, and basically I just used the mixing cups to measure and then poured them all into the bucket and then mixed them up so that we could use the bucket and pour one big batch at a time. And this still isn't all of it. This is just the biggest batch we can mix in the bucket. So we get that poured on, get most of it covered, and start evening it out. And now we're most of the way there. So we've still got a little bit left. So once we get this spread out, I'm going to go back and start making another batch. And that way we can finish it out and use all of this epoxy resin and get as thick of a coat as possible. You know, if possible, it would be ideal to make this, you know, a 1/4 inch thick or a 1/2 inch thick, but that would take a lot of epoxy. We'd have to let it cure each time. So we're just going for kind of the maximum thickness we can on one coat, one cure time. So we get the last bit of our epoxy resin poured on there and then start working it around. It's tricky because the table is a little bit wavy, you know, the way it's supported on the sawhorses. So we have to be careful and kind of adjust those around and make sure we don't end up with it way thicker in the corners than in the center. But at the end of it all, we've got a pretty good even coat. It's looking good. There's minimal air bubbles. It's really smooth. It's really clear. Pretty much everything we hoped and dreamed it was going to be. It came out exactly like we were going for. All right, well, we've given this thing all night to cure. It's still not fully cured. It's not supposed to be for 72 hours, but it's looking pretty good. I'm pretty pumped, dude. Look at this thing. Ah, man, it's so clear and glossy. It's so smooth. So soft, so satisfying. What a satisfying project. Now we did have, you know, this sticker was pretty toast when we put it on. We were fighting it the whole time and it peeled up even more. This one peeled up, which I definitely did not expect. So I'm gonna have to get in here with a razor knife and try to cut those little tails off where they started peeling up. But for the most part, it's super, super smooth, super consistent. I feel like we got the thickness spread out nicely. In hindsight, I do wish we would have painted the base table, the MDF black before we put the stickers on. The stickers were a last minute idea. I was just thinking about it and I was like, well, we're gonna epoxy it. It'd be cool to put something under it, you know, while we're doing it. So one of those things. Hindsight 2020. But anyway, really, really pumped on how this is turning out. So we're gonna let this cure some more. I'm gonna clean all these stragglers up and then it's time to move on to the base. Try to throw this together. We've got really the hardest pieces cut. Really, it's build box 1, box 2 with all the posts, and then just all the support beams, and then keep on trucking. So I'm gonna quit jibber jabbering and get back to work. So I was definitely dreading this part, just building the initial outside framework that we had cut, because as I was cutting with the saw, the bottom base angle, so the secondary angle, started to walk on me. So some of these 45s are essentially double angled. They're 45s, but then at, you know, another couple degree angle. So I knew it was going to be tricky to try to get these to meet up square and flush and get everything nice and tight. Now, as I said before, I'm not much of a wood guy. I don't normally work with wood. I'm used to working with steel and aluminum and metal, basically. And it's an interesting thing for me to work with wood because wood is not perfect. It's bowed and it's soft and you have all these things you have to work around, and the tolerances don't need to be as tight, but my brain doesn't work that way. My brain is like, this has to be perfectly square. There can be no gaps. These have to meet up perfectly because I've got to weld this, when in reality, you just throw some wood screws in it and it's totally fine. So I was definitely struggling a little bit at first to get over that pursuit of perfection. This has to be 100% exactly square and everything has to line up exact perfectly, and just start trucking on putting it together. So that's what we started doing. We finally gave up on the perfection aspect and just started putting it together. It's going to be stout. It's going to be sturdy. It's going to be a rectangle, and that's what matters. So we got the bottom frame assembled. We got all the posts screwed in with just one screw. That way we can work them around and make sure they're level when we attach the top portion, and started working on building the top frame. Now this is a little tricky by myself. I would put a screw on the end to kind of just hold the board roughly in place, and then while I got the first screw set, and then worked my way down. So now that we've got the boxes built, it's time to build the bracing. Now we waited to do this last because I want to measure for each and every brace. Again, this being wood, it's wavy, it warps a little bit, it's not exact. So you might have a 1/4 inch different from one brace to another down the line. So if I just cut them all the same length, we're gonna have gaps and it's gonna be pulling itself in and pushing itself out. So I wanted to go through and measure each and every one and then cut it and screw it in. So it's a little bit more time consuming to do it this way. You know, obviously it'd be easier to take one average measurement and just cut a bunch of them and start screwing them in, but I really want to build this thing as right as I possibly can. I want it to be sturdy. I want it to be nice. I want to do a good job of it. I've been wanting to build a workbench like this for several years now, and I've always got by with ones I had or toolboxes or the one that came with the house. So this was my time to finally put my effort where my mouth is and actually build it nicer than the ones I've been using for so long. So we worked through the top. We got all the top bracing in. Now we're potentially going to add one more brace, but I need to see how much we have left. This wasn't the exact spacing I had in mind when I determined how much material we would need for this. I had kind of a different game plan, but I changed it up with how many posts I used and all that, and it threw the plan in the garbage, and we had to come up with a new plan, and this new plan requires one more board, and I don't know if we're going to have enough material for that. We should, but I'd rather play it safe than sorry. We're going to get all the critical ones out of the way first, and if we have the leftover material, then we'll add that last and final brace. I mean, this is already overbuilt in reality. These are 2x6s. We've got a lot of bracing, but again, I'd rather have it overbuilt. I'd rather have it super sturdy than underbuild it and it's flimsy and it's floppy, and every time you set something on it, it's bending and bowing. I want this to be, I want to be able to set my Miata on this thing if I had to. That's the end goal here, is just to make it as stout as possible. So we get the final main braces in on the end, and we have enough left over to do one more to tie into the 4x4s in the middle. This is what I was hoping we'd be able to do, keep everything even, consistent, have the 4x4s tied in really well, since that's what the weight's going to be sitting on. and have a really, really solid overall framework to build off of. All right, well, the main frame is complete. Overall, man, I'm really happy with this thing. 45's all meshed pretty well. I haven't even, snugged everything up yet, besides the couple that had a slight added angle to them because the soft angle lock got loose. Other than that, the fit up's pretty good. Everything's nice and tight. It is super duper sturdy already. I mean, it's got it's got no flex in it at all, in any direction, which is exactly what I wanted. So yeah, that being said, we've just got a few screws in it, just pretty much one in every intersect point. And the reason for that is so that we could kind of move everything around as we went. And now that we've got it all fully assembled, we're not adding any pieces. As far as the frame's concerned, we can add a bunch more screws to stiffen it up even further. So that's what's next. I'm gonna add a bunch of screws to the top, flip it, add a bunch of screws to the bottom. We can get our casters on, get that done, and then start determining how we want to paint it. We got to build a bottom shelf, and then we've got to decide how we want to put the top on, because I'm a little concerned about putting screws through this epoxy. Now, obviously, it was something I thought about, and it's one of those things. Obviously, this would have been best to do last, once the table was fully assembled. The reason we didn't do it that way is just efficiency. Hopefully, we needed something to work on, and it would give us time to let it cure, and we could actually be done with the project when we're done, not wait 3 days for it. So that being said, it cured so fast that, if we did it at the end, it wouldn't have been a big deal, but you live and you learn. So that's last though. Putting the top on is gonna be the very, very end. So that being said, I'm gonna quit jibber jabber and I'm gonna get back to trucking on this. We're making good progress, cruising right along. I'm very happy with how the frame's turned out. So I'm gonna get back to it. Now it's time to commit and put a whole metric ton of screws in. So I started out with basically 3 per intersect point, 3 into the 4x4 on the outside, 3 into the 4x4 on the inside brace, 3 into the 4x4 on the other outside, 3 into the 2x6 brace, basically 3 screws anywhere screws could go. But as I started going, I thought, we might run out of screws. We might not have enough screws to do this. I have about 300 of them, but they go a lot quicker than you expect. So I started tapering down and using 2 in certain spots, and we went ahead and flipped the table over. And my idea is, if we have enough left over, I'll go back and put 3 in all. I'd like to have 3 in all the spots just because it's consistent, even though you'll never notice that there's 2 in some spots and 3 in others, and I did it evenly. I'll know, and it'll bother me. So I want to make sure that if I can, everything's got 3 screws in it. And, did I mention I want to make this thing stout and I want to make sure it holds up? So we did manage to get 3 and everything, and it was time to start putting the caster wheels on. Now, I'm not super fond of doing this with wood screws. I'd like to use lag screws, but these aren't my end-all be-all casters. These came off a toolbox I put in my trailer, so it's just kind of a temporary solution to get us rolling, literally. On this thing. So now that it's fully assembled, it is back upright. It's time to clean some things up before we start on the finishing touches and the final assembly. So I wanted to go ahead and grind down all of the corners, since again, some of these 45s didn't meet up great, and even if they did, they're really sharp edges. So I wanted to smooth those out, make them look nice and even and uniform. And then it was time to start building our lower deck. So we're putting plywood down here so that way we can store stuff down here. It's free real estate because you've already got the workbench taking up 4x8 amount of space. So you might as well put something under there so that you can stack stuff down there. Now for us, this workbench needs to be mobile. We need to be able to move it around, move it out of the way. So it is going to add weight if we've got a bunch of stuff down there. But man, in a shop, it doesn't matter how big it is. You always run out of real estate to store things and keep things organized. And the more places you have to store stuff out of the way, the more organized the shop's going to be, the less cluttered it's going to be. And if you're someone like me, the more efficiently you're going to work. I struggle to work when there's just clutter and chaos and mess everywhere. So we made the first 2 pieces. We had to do a little bit of trimming, but fortunately they fit exactly in the other side. So we were able to just trace them, copy paste over to the other side, got all of our homework done on the first 2 pieces, and that made our job easier on the second 2 pieces. Now we're using the bandsaw to cut these, and the reason for for this is the jigsaw blade that I have is super aggressive, and this plywood, it just wants to split the layers apart as you're trying to cut a thin strip off of it, so it makes it a little bit tricky. All right, bottom shelf is done. Pretty happy with that. 4 pieces total. We couldn't fit, if we just modified the one sheet, we couldn't physically fit it in there. So we had to do it in 4. So I'm happy with that, man. Whew. It was one of those I was kind of putting off because I knew it was gonna be a little finicky, but went pretty smooth, so. All right, get to screwing. Solid rig. It's time for the pièce de résistance. Damn, look at that workbench, boy. Honestly, it's massive. Definitely takes up some space, but it's gonna be so nice to have a big bench.
It's good height.
To access, yeah. Yeah, it worked out with the height. I was like between cutting the beams, these things at like 30 inches to 36 inches. But if I did them at 32, it was the same height as that. And then I got exactly 3 out of each post. So I was like, I'll do 32.
Right.
Yeah, this is Josue's new apartment.
It's roomy.
It looks so good. But now we've got storage down here for stuff, and then also a whole workbench, which we will obviously keep clear. The idea behind this I haven't really explained. The reason I've wanted to do this is we don't intend to keep a car here forever. It's just kind of a short-term thing till we do the lean-to, which is in the works. So there's that. One, once the car is gone, we have a ton of dead space over here. But 2, even without the car, we still have room to kind of shove this right up against the car. And then we have a workbench close by, because otherwise these are our close by workbenches. And they're kind of annoying. They fill up fast. I mean, as you can see, they're both full of stuff right now. So it makes it tough when you're tearing a car apart and you're taking a lot of stuff off. You've got to go all the way over there to that workbench, which is supposed to be the cutting table. So we didn't have a good dedicated workbench to tear apart stuff on. So that is what this is going to be now. And should fit the bill. I mean, we've got so much room to work on this thing. There's a lot we could do with this big of a tabletop. So put the glue on real quick. That way it has overnight to set. So after some debate, we decided to go ahead and just glue the top on and see if that works. If we have to, after the fact, we can add some L brackets on the inside and basically screw up into the MDF, but I don't think we'll need to. We're using this Titebond wood glue. This stuff is super strong and super stout. We've got a ton of surface area to glue to, so I think this will be plenty for the forces this top's gonna see that could possibly pull it off. All right, well, we let the glue dry on the tabletop. I literally lifted it from the lift here. It is solid. That Titebond stuff works really well. It's funny enough, that's what we use to coat this table. That's why I had some. You can see this stuff is old, very old, crusty, but hey, it did the job. So top's glued on. I don't think we really need to add anything else. I mean, there's not really any time where you're lifting up on the top. So Josue's working on getting the edge cleaned from that poster board that decided to become one with the table. So we're trying to get that sorted out, and we've got some wood stain. Decided to go semi-solid, not all the way solid. And I've done solid stain before, and it's like, you might as well paint the dang thing, you know? So if I'm gonna stain it, I want you to kind of be able to tell it's wood still. So jibber jabber, we got our don't spill stuff on the floor mat down. We're gonna get this cleaned off and then start staining. Final step in the process. So I did debate a lot between just painting this thing and staining it. As I said, I'm not much of a wood guy. I like wood in settings where you would have wood, but in a shop, I don't know. I'm just not much of a wood guy. So staining it and being able to see that it's wood kind of goes against my nature, but at the same time, we did get nice, decent wood for this, and I want you to be able to see that when this thing's all said and done. So we decided to stain it, but we're still going with a dark color. We're going with black. We're not going with a very wood-like, woody color. We're going with black just so that it blends in with the shop space and it's discreet. It doesn't catch your attention. You know, they like to paint things like this black because they just kind of blend and disappear into the distance. So we got all the stain on, we got the tape pulled off, and this thing's about good, done, and dusted. All right, well, we had to open the doors. The fumes were getting to us. We tried to muscle through it so we could keep the AC, but it was too much. We went from, I think, 73 degrees in here with 32% humidity to 82 almost and 79% humidity. 79. That's the biggest thing. It's not that much hotter in here. It's, you know, 7, 8 degrees, but the difference is the humidity. It makes you sweat. But that being said, we got the table done. Moral of the story, I was a little worried it was gonna get too tight, but we've got the Miata spaced further off this table than we normally do when we put a car here, just so we have more room to walk between it. And even still, you got the table, and then you've still got plenty of room to the front of the truck, which this is one of the bigger vehicles we put in here. You know, something like the Vet then might be a touch longer with the nose, but that's pretty much where the Vet would be if it was on the lift. See the 8.6 there. So we still got plenty of room. So happy with how this came out. The black stain looks really good. You can still see the grain in the wood, but it's also, you know, subtle. It's black, so it blends in. It doesn't catch your eye. It's not some super bright thing here in the middle of the shop. Aside from the top, top's a little bright. But yeah, that's that. Table is done. And we thought about, for an extreme test, putting the Miata on the lift and setting the Miata on the table and trying to roll it around. I think it would handle it. I think the casters might break off. But other than that, I think it would handle it. But we don't, you know, it's gonna take some time before I'm willing to really work on this bench because I'm gonna not wanna scratch it up. I'm gonna wanna keep it nice. But we'll get there. It'll get its first scratches and it'll be game over at that point. So I'm super happy about this. This piece of MDF has been sitting in the corner for probably 6 months now. I've had it for well over a year. Been wanting to do this project, and we had some time, and we finally got it done. And this is going to be a huge improvement and efficiency in the shop. And it's perfect because we actually have a project for this truck coming up next, really, that we've got to lay a bunch of stuff out. And now it's going to be right here, right by the truck. We got plenty of room to lay it out and still work. It's going to be nice. So that being said, we have the material for our shelves that we were intending on building as well, but I don't have the steel, and I couldn't get some in time from the steel place, but we're going to put shelves up over here, boom, basically from that beam to that beam, so that we have more storage up there. We can stack up stuff, you know, take advantage of the ceiling height and the wall space, but we are out of time. It is hot and it is humid. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Very, very fun project, very satisfying workbench build. Things super sturdy. Like I said, probably have to upgrade the casters, but other than that, I think she might outlast us. So that being said, thank you guys for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Let me know what you think of the workbench, what you would have done differently. I'm sure there's some things, probably plenty, but with that, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I hope to see you next time. Goodbye.